Popski's private expeditions has been exploring the Sahara Desert in search of historical discoveries for many years now. Using stripped-down vehicles like the early motorized desert explorers, we traverse these remote regions seeking discoveries of historical significance. In 2019, we went in search of a lost World War II Special Forces patrol, discovering important clues during our exploration. In 2022, we went back with a bigger team, more technology, and a definite starting point. Following clues left in wartime accounts, we narrowed down the search until at last we discovered the location where a Luftwaffe ambush destroyed 7 Special Forces vehicles.
Awesome!
To find something like that.
That's cool!
Great find.
In 2023, we returned to the Sahara once more with a new objective: to search for artifacts from the New Zealand Division's left flank around the German defences on the Mareth Line near the end of the Desert War in North Africa. It took us to new regions, new challenges, and new discoveries. We went in search of the Kiwi scorpions.
The lovely cornucopia of...
Well, just decide how much ice cream we're going to charge you for the next pub.
The thing is, we have got ice cream, and the issue out here is supply and demand. So normally ice cream's £1, £1.50. It's a bit more.
In December 1942, the Germans were heavily defeated at the Second Battle of El Alamein, and they retreated across Egypt into Libya and into Tunisia, where they repurposed an old French defensive line called the Mareth Line as a new defensive barrier. General Montgomery, knowing this, decided to send the New Zealand Division to outflank the Mareth Line and put pressure on behind it, forcing the Germans to abandon that too. To do this, he sent the long-range desert group through the mountains to the west of the Mareth Line, and Captain Nick Wilder, who is the patrol commander of T2 New Zealand Patrol, found a gap through the mountains which would enable the passage of the entire division. This was called Wilder's Gap. That was in January 1943, and Wilder's patrol were the first Allied troops to enter Tunisia on the 12th of January. In mid to late March, the New Zealand Division moved through Wilder's Gap. Then it paused for around a week to the west of Wilder's Gap, and waited for orders to move north toward the rear of the Mareth Line. In doing so, the New Zealanders proceeded past Sahara Lane and then to the northwest, and the Germans then abandoned the Mareth Line without defending it, and a couple of months later the Afrika Korps surrendered.
The search for the history of the New Zealand Division's famous left flank into the rear of the German defences on the Mareth Line took the crews of the PP into new areas. Wartime accounts told of how hundreds of tanks, troop carriers, trucks and men funneled through a narrow mountain pass discovered by the long-range desert group known as Wilder's Gap. Satellite images still show miles of parallel tracks in the desert created by these armored columns. So as the crews moved across the desert, we kept our eyes open for evidence of the Kiwi forces' passage. It wasn't too long until we began discovering the detritus of war strewn across the stony desert plains. Hundreds of British fuel cans, known as flimsies, were scattered along our path. These low-quality fuel tins would be punctured and cast away after use, and were a clear indicator we were on the route followed by the New Zealanders.
Okay, here we've got two flimsies fuel cans. This one looks as though it was made into a stove by puncturing it with a bayonet to make vents because they're commonly used as makeshift stoves. The Benghazi burner, they call them.
Most of our PPE crew members are military veterans or have a keen interest in military history. Each time we spotted a dark lump on the plane, we moved to investigate. We could identify many items we found as belonging to the passing army, and a few that were left by much later modern desert travelers. This jerry can turned out to be a later copy of the famous World War II design. The genuine artifacts left by the New Zealand Division were much more common. 27,000 men and 1,700 vehicles moving fast in wartime leave a trail that is easy to follow. Besides the flimsies, which were everywhere, we found food tins, oil cans, and a wide assortment of similar metal items that the dry desert conditions had preserved. Discovering this history made every day in the desert a satisfying success.
The move of 20,000 troops and a large number of vehicles over this terrain would have required large quantities of fuel, and the flimsies would have been discarded because there is no real reason to carry them with them for reuse, since they weren't particularly durable anyway. The movement of a division is a major logistical operation in terms of the food, fuel and water required to supply a division's worth of vehicles and almost 20,000 personnel. In terms of the New Zealand Division's move from its concentration area to the west of Wilder's Gap, north, the objects that we found earlier today, the flimsy petrol cans, the bully beef tin lid, and the part of a vehicle panel, they would have dated from this period in March 1943 as they moved up to put pressure on the Mareth Line. Growing up in New Zealand, I heard many stories of the New Zealand Division, and as a child and young adult, there were still many veterans around at that time. So being able to come here and see the ground that they travelled and fought over, and actually handle objects that they left behind on their advance, was it's a considerable source of satisfaction and interest for me, because it's been one of the things I've always had a strong interest in.